She's passionate about helping you become the best mama you can be and is pulling back the curtain on expert advice for every area of our lives, from eating for wellness, the best advice for littles, fashion and style, and everything in between. Get ready to get real. This is Not Your Mama's Podcast with your host, Christina Francie.
Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Not Your Mama's Podcast. I am your host, Christina Francie, and we are doing a part 2 segment with Cara DeArmond, who is a speech pathologist from TikTok Therapy, which helps children with speech, feeding, occupational, and myofunctional therapy, and is located in Henderson, Nevada. If you missed our first segment, we talked all about picky eaters and how to cope with that. And in this segment, we will be talking about speech therapy for our children. And for the people who missed the first segment about your background, can you please go in and let the audience know kind of what your background is?
Hi, yeah. I am a certified speech and language pathologist. I have a master's degree. I work with pediatrics from like 6 months up until we treat into like 21 years old. So we see a wide range of ages of kids for speech and feeding, like we talked about before.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to talk about speech therapy because my son also did speech therapy as well. And so I think the first thing is, what makes a child a candidate for speech therapy?
So we look at a lot of different factors and components. So if there's a speech delay, so if they're not hitting certain milestones, we look at that, but we also look at it from, a medical standpoint. Sometimes, is there a diagnosis? If we know specific medical diagnoses, maybe we start therapy a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. It just depends on the child and why they're seeking an evaluation or an assessment. So we try to get like the full case history of the child.
Okay, so let's say like a child is 1 year old or 1.5. Like, what would be an indicator for a new mom that their child is maybe delayed?
Yeah, so we look for precursory skills to language. So how are they communicating with us non-verbally? Are they making eye contact with us? Are they starting to gesture, point to things, point to pictures in books, showing understanding of following, simple questions and directions, things like that. Asking and observing the child to see if they're able to do those things. So there's within each like 6 months or so, 0 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months on, there's these milestones of what children are expected to be doing by that age. And so we, in the evaluation process, we, get parent report, we observe the child and see if they're able to do those milestones. And then we're listening to their verbal expression too. Are they imitating consonant and vowel sounds? Are they?
What age should they be doing that at?
You start imitating sounds early on, like vowel sounds start early. And then are they starting to babble? Are they putting those vowels and consonant sounds together? Yeah, it starts pretty early. By 12 months old, we're starting to have our first words. So to label things. And then we're looking, are they using communication functionally? Are they just labeling things, or are they requesting things? Mm-hmm. How are they communicating? Are they turn taking? How are their play skills too? We look at all of that kind of stuff. It's a whole scope of things. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to love what do you look at in terms of like the playing skills?
Yeah. So at certain ages, there's milestones for play too. We have an milestone of parallel play. So are they sitting next to you just playing? And then are they playing jointly with you? Or are you playing with the same toy, but they're not interacting with the communication partner or whoever is playing with them? So a lot of those skills we're looking at, because those, like I said, those are precursory kind of skills to language. We have to build this foundation and understanding of objects and things in our environment. And we do a lot of that through playing.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on what a speech evaluation would look like?
Yeah. So you typically get a referral from your pediatrician.
Okay.
Sometimes parents self-refer, but when you come in, we, depending on the kid's age, will decide if they need a standardized assessment or not. So
what is that?
So a standardized assessment is an assessment that's normed by other kids and gives us a standard score to determine if there's a deficit or not. So typically average scores are between 85.
Oh, you're kind of cutting out a little
less
bit.
than that.
Can you repeat it one more time just because it repeated out a little bit. Average score.
Oh,
just repeat the average score.
When you give a standardized assessment, you score it, and an average score is between 85 and 100. Okay. So anything less than 85 is considered a deficit. And so that's when, but sometimes children have a hard time attending to those standardized assessments. So then we do informal assessments where we're assessing through play or parent interview. And also I want to mention, it's not just language we're looking at too. We're listening for speech, and are they able to make the different sounds? Are they?
Oh, you kind of cut out.
Hold on.
Oh, you're back on.
Okay. It's saying my AirPods are connecting, but I don't have them. I'm like,
oh, I hate when that happens.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
So yeah, we're looking at speech and the speech sounds, and can they move their lips and their tongue to create these speech sounds? So it's not just speech, and we're looking at vocal quality and a lot of different aspects in a speech and language assessment.
How do you get a kid to like do those things? Like, can you make these different pitches? Huh?
What?
How do you get like a child to like do those things, to like see them? How are you evaluating them? Are you like, repeat after me, or?
Yeah, like I'm seeing if they can imitate me. I'm seeing if they can follow, put the cow on top of the barn, seeing if they understand that language as we're playing, if they can't participate in those standardized assessments. Can they, discriminate between something that is big and something that is small? Can you give me the big ball, or can you get me the small ball? Can you stomp your feet? Identifying body parts or clothing on themselves, how objects are used. We look at all of those kinds of things too. So what they can understand.
Like what age should a child be able to identify, let's say, the body part?
By 12 months, they should be identifying like 2 body parts on themselves.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they start to expand, and then they can identify body parts on dolls and stuff like that too. But first it's like at 12 months, 2 body parts on themselves.
Okay. And then how do you help support new parents or old parents, with at-home speech therapy?
I encourage, sitting and playing. I encourage singing and book reading. Songs and books have a lot of repetitive language and verses. So just a lot of auditory bombardment. You're narrating a lot, but I also tell parents to be okay with silence sometimes, because a lot of times we're narrating and we're talking and we're filling the space with our own language, and we're not giving the child any space to communicate back to us too. So sometimes we have to be okay with the silence too, and try to encourage. And then if they're not responding to us, then we can model the language again for them. So playing, books. I love all those things. iPad, if the parent is sitting there with them and, interacting with the iPad too. Sometimes, they can play with the iPad independently and have fun and whatever. But I also think you can make it into a play moment and, kind of like teaching moment where you're interacting with the iPad too. Because some kids they attend better to the iPads now, but, making it interactive too.
Yeah. I also do want to say, as someone who had their child in speech therapy, and when I got like my first evaluation back, I was like, oh my God, I felt really like devastated. And for parents that do experience that, I just want you to know that like they will eventually end up talking. Like, my son Cole has made like huge strides in his speech, and they will get there, if there's not like a medical issue.
Right.
And sometimes like, I feel like boys, and don't tell me if I'm wrong, do tend to like develop a little bit more slowly than girls.
Yeah. Boys do tend to develop. That is true. So, but I always like to tell parents too, because they're like, how long is this going to take? When is he going to start talking? When is she going to start talking? Like, and I always, do, and then they, come to with concerns of autism or some other intellectual disability. And I always like to tell them, like, let's give the kiddo 6 months of therapy, see what kind of progress they can make. And then maybe we start talking about other referrals if needed. But I always like, let's give the kid some time. Sometimes it is a delay, but sometimes it is a true, language disorder. I like to give it time.
Yeah. Yeah. We want our kids to like grow up so fast these days. And sometimes we just need to let them be kids, figure it out. And they all develop and have their own strengths, they may be running and walking at, 9 months, like my kid was, but, maybe a little bit slower to talk, but it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with your child.
I always like to find strengths in the kids, and that's what we, work off of, is those strengths that they have.
Yeah, no, they do. And, it's not a one size fits all thing. And that's what makes us special and unique is, the different strengths that we have, and, and overcome like, the things that are maybe like lacking in us, but doesn't mean that, our child isn't capable of achieving the things that we want them to achieve.
Right. Yeah. And then in the case that, the child is, I like to say now, like preverbal instead of nonverbal. It's something that I've heard said around the SLP community now, is saying preverbal instead of nonverbal, because they always have the, they can become verbal. That is our goal always. And we can give them, alternate means of communication too, if need be. There's different devices that kids can use now that help them communicate their wants and needs to friends and family and whoever that they want to communicate with. So it's just speech and language pathology is like such a huge scope of what we treat and look at, and like so many different aspects to it. So,
oh yeah, I'm sure we can talk for hours about, and all the different things, but, we only have so much time, and going kind of back and talking about, getting the child to communicate back? Like, what kind of options do you use in the therapy? Like, for example, do you do like sign language? Do you do cued speech, auditorial, verbal?
Yeah. So yeah, gestures are a precursory skill to language. So teaching kids to point, to discriminate pictures in books or between objects that we're playing with, pointing to request something that we want, given a choice, signing for more or all done, to communicate, asking for milk. So yeah, we teach gestures along with the verbal communication.
Perfect. Yeah. So at the end of each episode, I do ask all 4 questions, and we asked the first 2 in the previous interview, excuse me. So the next 2 I have for you is, what's the essential part of your daily routine?
Coffee.
Oh, yeah.
Check. I'm like, I have to have my coffee every morning. I only have 1 cup, but I have a cup of coffee with my nut pods. I love.
Yeah. How do you like your coffee?
I do French press. And so
ooh, I do that too.
Yeah. A hot cup of French press.
Yeah, I do French press, and then I like to have oat milk. I feel like oat milk is so much better in coffee than almond milk.
I do nut pods. I think it's almond and coconut. I don't know. They have good flavors.
Oh, nice. I should try
that. I have a little frother, so sometimes I make it frothy.
Yeah, I know. I have a frother too, but I like never use it. I'm just too lazy. I'm like, just pour the coffee in, French press it.
Yeah, got to drink that coffee while it's hot too. Otherwise, which doesn't happen often. Like, oh no, where'd that coffee go? Now it's cold.
Yeah, I know. I just stick it in the microwave. Like, I have to have at least 2 cups a day.
Yeah.
3 is my bonus, I don't know how healthy it is, but okay. And then, so the last question is, best advice you've ever received?
Just be happy with, what you have. Be happy with what you have, and, relish in, the people that are around you. So yeah,
that's
just
good. Be present in the moment.
In the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I was talking with someone the other day, and sometimes we can get so caught up in all of the moving parts of our lives. Like, we forget to just sit back and just be in the moment and enjoy like the time with our kids instead of like fidgeting on our phones,
Right. I know. I got yelled at the other day by my almost 8-year-old. Get off your phone, Mom. I'm like, oh yes, sorry.
Yeah, no, my 3.5-year-old's like, no phone.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Like, I'm like the one that's like, here, you want your iPad? He's like, no iPad. Like, so he's definitely, he's my little lover. So but Cara, thank you so much for coming on and taking time to let the audience kind of in on some information about what they can do for the speech therapy. I will leave, if you are in the Henderson, Nevada area, I will leave the link for the TikTok therapy if you want to go there. It's a great facility. I have been there myself personally. And do you have any last words before we go?
Yeah, we're just, we're here in Henderson if you need us.
Perfect. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much. And if you missed the first episode about picky eating, go check that out, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, no problem.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Not Your Mama's Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.